Make sure those weapons are primed, warm up those engines, and make sure your seat is cozy, citizens, because Arena Commander is finally upon us. My name is Dr. Hawk, and I run Star Citizen FM, the longest running show in the verse dedicated to helping you, the pilots, figure out what's optimal in a non-optimal situation. With Arena Commander before us, we have a perfect opportunity to hone our skills in a simulation environment. So join me as we go over how to effectively use your ship, use some tips and tricks in combat, and prepare you for the eventualities of live-fire combat. A small disclaimer. This video is made under the assumption that you have already watched RSI's guide on how to maneuver and control your new ship. If you have not already done so, it is highly advised you head over to the comm link and watch this prior to watching this video. Arena Commander provides a perfect opportunity for a pilot to test his or her brand new ship in a simulated environment. This will allow you to get a feel for your new ship, as not every ship handles the same, and many pilots make the assumption that their ships are far more maneuverable than they actually are. If any of you are familiar with waterboating, you may liken these ships' experience to something similar. They like to slide, they like to skip, and they generally handle heavy. Even the Origin's 300i feels like it's drifting most of the time. You will get used to this, as once you learn how to master the ship's controls, you will feel a lot more comfortable. Most of your maneuvering will be done with your primary thruster, and not with your RCS control vents. Be sure to get used to the Newtonian flight mode. This can be activated at any time and allows you to turn on a dime. This is a useful combat maneuver that you will end up using many times in your simulation and possibly real combat career. Be sure to also optimize your control scheme, depending on what you're using to interface with the simulation, be it a keyboard, gamepad, or joystick. Not everything is fully optimized at the moment while Original Systems comes out with more patches, so be patient if your preferred control scheme doesn't exactly control your ship. Be sure to be familiarized with all aspects of the controls. For example, let's say if you cannot access flares on a joystick, try to maybe see if you can find the keyboard shortcut, which would be Z to activate flares, and X to cycle between chaff and flares. Not many pilots have been using this, and this has led to a downfall of many pilots within the first few minutes of their simulation. Once you're confident in your handling abilities of your spacecraft, try to attempt a few more acrobatic maneuvers. Try maneuvering between small objects and nooks and crannies. Maintaining your speed in a turn is actually fairly difficult to do, and many pilots will be tempted to yank back on the control stick, effectively killing their velocity and putting them in a deadpan. If you could learn how to mix the Newtonian flight mode combined with gentle turning, you'll be able to maintain your speed in the turn, making you a harder target to hit, as well as affording you greater control of where your ship is actually going. Familiarizing yourself with the HUD is also a very handy maneuver. This can be controlled by default on the keyboard with the F1, F2, F3, and F4 keys. Each will allow you to respectively overview your ship's status, see your weapons status, see your power status, and finally see your shield status. All three can be toggled and configured as needed, so be sure to pick the one that is appropriate for you in the proper situation, or pick the one that you favor the most to see. I cannot stress enough how important it is to master your agility in Arena Commander. Learning how to properly turn and control your craft in a very steep or otherwise tight turn will help you maneuver around potential obstacles, as the arena simulation ships quite often tend to have a habit of either ramming or staying still. Until this AI problem is either addressed or otherwise adapted to, you'll have to learn to deal with how to avoid them, as hitting them will cause catastrophic damage to your ship and is not advised. Be sure to use your throttle control sparingly when trying to maneuver. Too much or too little throttle control can actually mess up your turns. Try to keep it in a sweet spot between 50 to 70, depending on what type of turn you're trying to do. If you're trying to do a more tighter turn, lower your speed accordingly. However, if you're trying to perform a quick turn on a dime, using your ship's afterburner in conjunction with a tight turn possibly aided with Newtonian mode, can allow you to detoggle your ship, spin around 180 degrees, and move in the opposite direction, provided you are not being fired upon. This can allow for some pretty interesting scenarios, so be sure to play with that toggle mode and see what kind of maneuvers you can come up with. The more you're able to throw off your opponent's aim, the longer you'll be able to survive. Combat is where the heart of Arena Commander lies. This will allow any pilot to take his or her craft and familiarize themselves with how they handle, how they fight, and what kind of damage they can dish and deal out respectively. Be sure to properly configure your ship prior to entering the simulation, as you can take weapons that you currently have in your hangar or on other ships and slot them into a ship of your choosing for the simulation. Find something you're familiar with, equip it, and be sure to have fun with it in the simulation. Not many people have noticed this about Arena Commander, and it's fairly surprising to see that other people are running around with Klaus and Werner mess drivers in every one of their slots. Be advised that ammo counts are not properly configured yet for some ballistic weapons, and you will not know how many rounds you have in your ballistic weapon. This may be patched later. When you engage in combat, be sure to select your target. Select the target with the corresponding key for your control scheme, and wait till it is locked on. You do not have to wait to lock on, however, to begin firing. Once you have already selected your target, your ship will attempt to configure or create firing solutions for its weapons. This is indicated by the green circle that will appear. This green circle will change to a green diamond when your ship has a firing solution. Provided on how well your aim is, and between the firing solution that the ship provides, you will either have a very accurate hit, or something that will hit relatively in between. If you are not locked on and the ship does not have a green firing solution, aiming will be much more difficult, so be sure to aim and lock on accordingly. Otherwise, manual aim is something you'll be learning how to do very quickly in Arena Commander. Despite the ship giving you a firing solution, it is not 100% accurate. Every shot will have a high chance to miss. The firing solution only helps bring your guns closer to bear. So fine-tune your aim accordingly and zoom in if you need to. This will allow you to hit critical locations on the enemy ships, as well as possibly disable them if that's something you're trying to practice for in live combat. Useful for both bounty hunters and pirates alike. Chaff and flares. It cannot be stressed on how important it is to learning how to evade a missile in Arena Commander. You may be lucky and may be able to do it with your agility and piloting skills, but most of the time you will have to resort to chaff or flares. By default on the keyboard, these are activated using the Z key, and you can cycle through between chaff and flares using the X key. Currently I have not found a way to decipher if an incoming missile is either infrared or radar guided. So as such, the best practice I've developed until I can further tell what type of missile it is cycling both chaff or flares and firing them as close to simultaneously as possible. If you are facing an enemy ship while a missile is fired at you, your chances of evading are far less than if you had your rear facing to them. If it's infrared or you suspect it's infrared, be sure to not fire your afterburners, lower your throttle, and try to engage in a sharp turn before the missile impacts, releasing a flare at the same time. If it's chaff, be sure to change to the corresponding chaff and release when the missile is proportionately close to your ship. Releasing them too early will not fool the missile, and you more than likely will get hit. Weapon usage. Try to not fire like a cowboy. Firing too much will leave your ships either damaged and overheated due to the repeated firing of your weapons, or without ammo. Your ships, if they're firing energy weapons, have an energy reserve. Take your shots, time them, make sure that you're properly hitting your opponent or at least coming close. Firing blindly will leave you either without ammo or with overheated and damaged modules. Shields. Your ship can only take a few hits before your shields will deplete and you'll be vulnerable to hull damage. If this happens, either evade the target as best you can by jinking, turning whatever it is that works, putting an obstacle between you and him, or try to retaliate and fire back. Most of the AI, upon receiving damage in Arena Commander, will actually bug out. They will try to avoid taking hits themselves and will try to flee, only to return and come back and shoot you later. I have not fought players, and this is not an advised tactic with players, as most people will generally try to shoot you before you turn around. These are just a small number of tips and tricks that I have discovered while trying Original Systems Arena Commander. If there is anything that you guys have discovered while trying it, please do let me know in the comments section below or in the forums. I'll be releasing more videos to help pilots as we figure out how to effectively handle our ships. And in the meantime, discuss with me what you think your effective tactic is. Do you prefer to go in guns blazing, or do you prefer to take a more tactical approach and shoot from afar? In the meantime, this has been Dr. Hawk. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to providing many more. Subscribe if you've enjoyed the show, and let me know in the comments below if you have any complaints or comments. As always, you guys take care and fly safe. This is Dr. Hawk, signing off.
Contact. Elite units en route.
Contact. Scan initiated.